So since we are very short of time, I'll quickly jump in. We have the collective experience of this panel is 100 plus years. We're looking at you, sir, with that much experience, and then we kind of follow.
I do 60 years.
Yes, right. So more than 100 years, and we've all been in a law firm. We've all been GCs, and there's a very different expectation when you're a GC versus when you're a law firm partner. There's this a revenue model that a law firm has, and there's a budget model that the GC has, right? And then there is an expectation setting that sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't happen, right? And therefore, it will either make or break the relationship. But relationships are also built on trust. Relationships are also built on years of experience in the industry. Relationships go beyond the money part of what we call the fees, right? So there is, the panel kind of speaks about new expectations, new economics, and kind of new ground forward, right? And therefore, what would be more relevant for this panel is to kind of deliver upon what they think an ideal 2026 could be from expectation setting, what could be a way forward for law firms, both Indian and global, to work with the Indian GCs, since we are so price conscious, and what would they want the best, given there is AI, there is legal tech, there is a lot of specialist experience, right? So we're gonna be asking all that. So this is gonna be a very high powered session that ways. I don't think the panel needs any introduction, so I'm not going to introduce. The names are out there behind. But I'm going to ask the first question with random order every time so that, the speakers are on their toes every time. So since you're just sitting here, when you started versus what you see now, right, there's a lot of young blood that's come in. There's a lot of new tools that have come in. There is a lot of new there's a lot of new laws that have also come in, right? A lot of them. And a lot of them have revised, and a lot of them have also been out. What expectations do you have as a GC from a law firm that can guide you well in the year ahead?
Thanks Business World for inviting us for this panel. How many in the audience are from law firms? That's a very small minority. So, just answering your question, life has undergone change, and it will. Change is the only reality. If I go back to when we started, we started with, we used to have one secretary in a team of 8 people, and there used to be a manual typewriter. But the competence of the typist used to be so good that he never used to take shorthand. He used to say, "You dictate, I'll type," and he would never make a mistake. And that's something that I used to wonder: how would he type 30 pages and just take out the printout and say, "Read it"? And there would not be a single spelling mistake. And lo and behold, it used to be. But life has moved on from there on. Net came in, we got into computers, we got into all of that. The first time I remember when I sent a document on the online, that was a big success. Because documents either you would be couriered and you send to, or you fax documents. And the first time you sent out electronic documents. So life has changed. The quality of people who are in-house has changed. The quality of counsels who are delivering law has changed. There's been a big shift. To give you an example, in the early 90s, the big law firm in Delhi used to be J.B. Dadachandji, right? I don't know how many of you would have even seen an office of J.B. Dadachandji. So the simple rule is to be, in a day, if you have not been to J.B. Dadachandji once, you have not been to the temple. And that's the way people used to say. Over a period of time now, you see more law firms in the client's office than clients getting into the lawyer's office, right? So that's the shift that has happened. And the shift is because not the corporate law per se has undergone a lot of change. You know, I am not sure. I think the first big corporate transaction that by and large happened was Hindustan Lever taking over Tomco. Tomco. Yeah, that was the first. And thankfully, yours truly was a part of that team. And that's how I got inclined towards the corporate practice, right? And confidentiality those days used to mean that you were all tied up into one room. We Hindustan Lever used to have a guest house in India International Center, 4 rooms. So the main door used to be locked. We were inside there for 4 days, and we finished the transaction. The speed, it was 24 hours. You had nothing else to do. There used to be only one landline, and the landline only was meant for emergency use. Or the boss would use the landline, call in the lawyers or anybody. You, from a confidentiality point of view, you are not allowed to touch the phone. So from there, life moved on. And I think the bit significant difference, or let me make it a little more energizing to conversation. I think the topic was reset, right? Reset. I think it's important for everyone to realize that these days in-house is no more in-house. It's actually a small law firm inside a corporation. It is. And if your bosses or if you as GCs are not doing it, then you are behind. With internet, with AI, with all of that, you have access to as much of that as much as the law firms have. Now, does that mean law firms are redundant? No. There is a complementary. Both are complementary. Earlier, the feeling used to be law firms are at a higher pedestal, you in-house lawyers are at a lower pedestal. वो ज्ञान देते, आप ज्ञान लेते हो, आते हो, काम करते हो. The system has changed. Today's promoters is not interested to, if you go and tell the promoter that I've got this opinion from Sam, Cam, AZB or Luthra, here's the opinion. He says, what's your opinion? That's where the butt stops. And the moment the accountability comes there, so you and the law firm are more or less on the same page. So both have to realize that. If that realization, so therefore I say it's actually reset for law firms more than the reset. Because the in-house counsel, that the departments are already on a roll. If they don't do, why do you see so many companies hiring in-house people? That's only because that's the only way that the in-house corporate world will move. And just being fair to the law firm, they have also started realizing that there is some headwinds, or there is some space that they used to occupy is being occupied by this. So therefore, they have to be relevant, you have to be relevant for the success of the system. I'll stop. I can go on.
We have limited time. Amit sir, why don't you give a few remarks on where do you think we are today versus where we were 5 years ago, and what is the expectation that you would have from tomorrow? Just a brief would probably be good.
Thank you. Thank you, BW Legal, Pranav, and eminent panelists. I think after opening of economy, when the investment started flowing, the role of a GC has undergone a significant change, right? He is not just looked as a legal gatekeeper, right? He is now considered as a strategic business leader in the organization. GC, who is actually considered to be a law expert, is now, expected to be a business expert and contribute in the strategic business decisions. Industry knowledge is very, very important. I mean, earlier we used to think that, a particular general counsel, actually, if he knows the law, he can be successful everywhere, right, in any organization, because, your major role is, defining, interpreting law. But now the role has changed, right? You have to be a business leader. You have to be thorough in the industry knowledge, right? Regulatory affairs, governance, and also, you should assess, the risk involved in the business and what can go wrong and what are the solutions that you can put up. As the role of the GC is changing from the courts, litigation, and contracts to the boardrooms, right? The reset which is required between the GCs and the law firm is also changing. Now the expectations are different, as Mr. Raghu said. Time has changed, and in-house is no more in-house, right? He is someone who has to advise the board on different aspects, not just related to law. As we, the expectation of the board is that general counsel should be an industry expert. The same expectation goes for a law firm as well, right? It's not only limited to law. You have to be clear on the regulatory affairs, what is going on in the industry, what is the further planning in that particular industry. If we are working on a contract and there is a policy regime which is expected maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, and if some adverse policy regime come, entire plan of the organization will go for a toss. So there is an immediate need that, we have to be vigilant on the regulatory affairs, what is happening in the industry, what is industry trend, and what is the policy of the government down the line 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. So it's not just related to your bare acts, right? It is basically, you have to look from a long-term perspective that we are actually someone who would ultimately be responsible to contribute to the bottom line by preserving the value. So this is the expectation that is not only restricted to GC, but also goes to the law firm. Now law firms, if you look at, there is a shift. I have seen in the recent past, the partners are moving, there is a high attrition. The challenge with the law firm is to retain the partners and people. Now, this is happening because everyone is in a race to build a team who can, assist the GCs and the clients in such a manner that they can give a one-stop solution, right? And this is what is expected because, today, if you are going, there were times when you are going to a law firm for a litigation, for a contract support to a different law firm. For a specific kind of a litigation, you go to a renowned, counsel. Now the things are changing. We need a strategic business partner in a law firm. So we need a complete support. The different kind of expert can come on a table, and we finalize a particular business decision with precision.
Well said. I think from typewriters to keyboards to AI, from journalist to about specialist in terms of advisory, right? Ravi, where do you think we will be heading next year? Any two bits, any interesting points that you are seeing as a trend?
Firstly, thank you, Pranav, for the opportunity. To me, what really matters the most in any corporate setup is the speed. And that's essentially a reason why there is a lot of focus on hiring in-house specialists, right? There's a lot of pressure from investors, from the boardroom, on GCs, on the in-house legal team to quickly close the transactions, close the deals, and hence there's a lot of focus on increasing your team size, getting the right set of people, getting an experienced set of people who will continuously add the value, bring the efficiency in the system. And to me, what will really drive the future is how quickly you are able to deliver to your GCs. Now it depends on you as an organization, what sort of tools you use, what sort of people you have. Do you have got the specialist within the firm? You have got the IT system, so that you are able to quickly deliver what is really expected from you. And that also comes from a very clear communication with the in-house teams. You need to have a far deeper relationship with them to understand, what are the intricacies involved, what sort of people are involved, what are their aspirations, what are their expectations. You'll have to go over and beyond the law to understand, the finer nuances, so as to ultimately deliver what is really expected, right? No one is really willing to pay for the inefficiencies, right? There would be pressure on the there would be pressure on the in-house teams to cut down their budgets, right? And which has always been the case. And hence, to me, the most important thing is efficiency and speed. That is one thing these are two things that you need to focus a lot as a law firm.
Right. So, what I gather from this first question of mine, the expectation setting is there is a need for the GC, who is now a strategic advisor, to also have a support from a law firm partner who can also advise very strategically, right? Because if you're only dealing with litigation and you can't kind of give support to a GC sitting in a boardroom about 8 hours in a row deciding on what a 2026 financial year plan should be, and that too in October of last year, then you're really not adding any value, except for the fact when a litigation comes, I will probably consult with you, or when there's a contract which my team can't handle, then I'll outsource you. So there is a need for that, and that comes with a lot of experience of handling how a board will probably respond, what is the next best option that we can give, and where is the middle ground that we will have to hold, right? That's one. That's what he said. And then you're saying that there is also the expectation that we also want specialists, right? 2026 or maybe years from now will be an area where specialists will have more role than a journalist, because in-house is more so a journalist approach, because you don't know what is coming to your table, right? And therefore the way the spend has to be will be on more specialist related things. So, that's a situation wherein a law firm will think, okay, if I can be a specialist, then I can't be advising a board, and if I'm advising the board, then I need to know everything and I can't be a specialist. And therefore it gives very confusing message to a law firm, whether I become the journalist in 30 years and then I advise the board, or I can become an independent director, or whether I keep going with the telecom law or competition law or maritime law, right? So that's a question I think the law firms will have to answer for themselves, as to where they think their firm has an expertise on, and where do they think their journey will take them to. And then now coming on to, our area for this panel is also the new economics, which really means what is it that brings a law firm to the table with a GC and then add value, or what kind of things that do not add any value and we let go of that firm, either as a firm which has been there with our company, or as a new firm that I think, okay, does not add value. So the hourly billing system is now almost redundant, right? And now there is a blended rate that came in between. Now with AI and legal tech, where do you think, and I will start from you, Ravi, where do you think now we are approaching that?
To me, as I said earlier, the most important thing is a very clear, candid communication conversation with the GCs. Right? You can have a very candid conversations as to what are their expectations, what would really sail through in the system, and more often than not, there are internal parameters as to how they would want to make payments to external vendors, and that's how they also look law firms as. There would be vendors, from the finance side, from the marketing sides. They would have budgets as to, what are the pricing structures they can internally agree to. And for that matter, you need to have a clear communications, work out ways which could be innovative. For example, we are focusing a lot on retainership models. These are fixed price retainership models, and we let them sort of cherry pick where they want to use our services, right? So law firms now need to come up, especially the young lawyers, the young law firms need to come up with something innovative which would really work with systems, especially with the mid-sized companies, startups. I believe there's a lot of space, where you can enter into, and it's just that you need to be a little competitive in the pricing. There are problems with the hourly rates, and large firms have been able to sail through with that. But there would be a challenge for the young firms to go with that. Hence, a fixed price model or a some innovative model would really work. We are also focusing a lot on value-added services, right? For example, if you can arrange sort of trainings for the employees, be it on the POSH, be it on the corporate frauds, the other AI aspects, data privacy aspects, and if these are the value-added services that you can offer to the GCs or to the in-house teams or to the other business teams of organizations, they really appreciate that sort of an effort. So as firms, I think you need to be continuously innovate in your offerings and the pricing structures that you have.
Amit sir, what do you think? Where is this new economics going to be settling in from whatever you've seen in the last few years?
So, Pranav, I remember the days when I started working as a GC in the organization. Those were the time when we talk about the cost effectiveness and relationships, right? If you like the working of a particular partner, you stick to a law firm, right? Time has recently, has undergone a dramatic change. You don't know, whether a particular partner will stay in the organization for years or till your deal completion. So you have to be careful, right? So what you actually need has to be communicated to the law firm that this is the expectation that we want to meet. I mean, certainly, cost effectiveness has been taken over by efficiency, I would say. And the secondly is the risk mitigation, because the deal size has gone up significantly. You can't afford to have, something missed out, in your contracts, in your litigation, in your deal. That's very, very important. I won't mind paying little higher, right? But at the same time, the quality is something which cannot be compromised, right? Second thing is that you have to go little differently, right? Not restricting yourself to the legal aspect, but, kind of a advisory where, a risk mitigation can be planned for a long term, right? So the expectation is based on the solutions being offered by a law firm, the reliability, and how, when a GC needs a particular deal to be closed in 15 days' time, you can't say that, it would require a month's time or I don't have a sufficient manpower. I need a back-end reliability on a law firm that if the deal need to be closed in a time-bound manner, they are behind me to, make everything possible so that the client do not suffer. I think those are the things which are gaining importance this time with the GC and law firm relationship.
I think one of the things that have happened for a frequent usage of different firms for the same topic is because the quality has improved significantly and there's a baseline to that quality. Earlier it was either very bad quality or a good quality. Now everybody produces very good, sufficiently good quality, and the only discussion is the price point and the availability of the partner in question, because he comes for a pitch and then but does not work in any of the deals. It is his junior. So I am paying basically for a junior while I was supposed to have partner on that deal with the price point, right? So Raghu sir, between a price predictability, what a GC wants for the entire year versus the unlimited budget, what a law firm really would want from a GC, where do you think the middle ground will happen?
The middle ground for me happened many, many years back. So, sorry, Amit. In the sense that, first and foremost, you are not married to any law firm. That's the first big mistake in-house lawyers make. You're not married to any law firm. Second thing is that you create this huge pool of lawyers who are either litigation lawyers, specialist lawyers, whatever, and you pick the phone and ask the question to the right lawyer. And that is where just contrary to the way law firms spend a lot of time doing business development, as an in-house counsel, you're supposed to find out and learn who are the lawyers who are good, competent. Like I remember when I was in Madison, one fine day we decided to get into aviation and defense. You know, market is absolutely, but you have to find who in the market had done aviation and defense. And now you go and ask law firms, everybody will say we can do it. In fact, how many of you have seen a law firm's brochure? It has started from animal husbandry to everything in the system, right? Now, that is the law firms who write that, I completely put the profile to the side, first. Secondly, one thing that I think, just being fair, please realize the litigation environment in this country is going from bad to worse. Companies don't have the patience. So there's a lot of pressure on in-house counsels to reduce litigation. The companies don't mind spending money on corporate transactions, but they don't want to spend money on litigations. In fact, and I say this with a lot of pride all the while, in Madison during my tenure I brought down the litigation to zero. Zero litigation for a company that is a $26 billion company working across the globe. The only litigation that we had was people who had filed against us. We did not litigate. So there is an orientation that will go. Secondly, when you have transactions, how do you select counsels? I think that's very fundamental, because pricing is always a factor of, first when the transaction falls into your lap, you know how big, what's the scale of the transaction. It's very important for in-house lawyers, because most of you here are in-house, to write the scope of the work that you are expecting the external counsel to do. We don't define the scope. If you don't define the scope, the law firms define it. That's where is the problem. So if you define the scope, and the way I've done this for the last 15 years, if there's a transaction on my table, I will spend at least 3 to 4 days drafting the scope. I'll first ask my junior to draft it, then I will review it, then, because just to be sure that, and in that process, you always challenge yourself, what out of the scope can be done in-house? What is it that I'm using the law firm for? That is very important, because cost is, you can't just go to the law firm and say, you're too exorbitant. They have their cost. They will give you 10 arguments and, you end up, and you don't want to be a bad fish in a big ocean, right? Every law firm fits to every other law firm. But you have to be very firm with what you're doing. And the reality today is that if a transaction happens, most of the things that don't have a legal impact are all done in-house. Starting from, I think somebody was saying, I'm not dependent whether the counsel is still there in the law firm or not, because those days are gone. I drive the transaction. The transaction is my transaction. The transaction is not a law firm's transaction. Those days, I think these are paradigm shifts that have happened, and people who have accepted it faster are in a better position. And once you draft the scope, you send it to the 4 or 5 law firms and ask them for a fee quote. Obviously, there will be 1 or 2 discussions without naming the client. And you will be surprised, you will be really surprised that starting from, I've got quotes on the same transaction, same scope, from $100,000 to $1 million.
Depending on who the client was.
No, they don't know the client. We were the client. So the law firm, gone are the days when the law firm should look at my balance sheet and decide what fee they're going to charge. They must charge on the basis of value that they bring to the table, not my balance sheet. I made a 5,000 crore profit annually. Doesn't mean that I'm going to pay that to the law firm. Then why am I working? I must be an idiot, right? That apart. Then, once you have zeroed in on the fee part, you have to also be very careful who's the partner working. and what is the team working. The competence of the partner and the team. It may be the same law firm, but you may not go for every transaction to the same partner. And I have seen there are smaller law firms also, very competent partners you can do. Like I'll give you an example, NCDs. Because in Mercer we used to do a lot of debt transactions. After the first 2 years, for all my NCD transactions, I did it in-house. I did not engage any law firm. The bank used to engage a law firm, whose fee also we used to pay. But I would not engage a law firm from my side at all. Because after the first 2 transactions, in-house we had developed so much of expertise and we were reading the same FERA laws and FEMA laws. Right? So end of the story, why do you need a law firm? If this is not getting filed before any court, this is not getting, you are doing a transaction, it's a bilateral transaction between the bank and you for the NCDs.
Raghu sir, you realize that you're a law firm right now, right?
I have started, but that is, I'll tell you, I'll be honest. I've started a law firm for all my retainer billing, only from a billing perspective. I am not in competition with any law firm. I don't solicit business. I have not been to any client's office. I have not, if I have asked for business from any one of you, please tell me.
I don't remember, sir.
I am there because people ask me to do legal work. From tax reasons, it's better to be in a law firm than take it in a personal account. Therefore, that law firm.
I totally agree.
You will not see any pitch from my side ever.
Two of the things that you said, sir, I think one, which we will collectively agree as the audience in this room plus the panel is how much important is the scoping exercise, right? Without which it is truly a make or break, and a bad scoping can actually lead to a frustrated output, right? Because you do not know, you said you should do the entire transaction, not knowing that he also had to do secretarial work of filing that, or a regulatory work, and then he says, no, I was not told, I do not have people, and then you're stuck with the timeline that is going on. So scoping, I think anybody who's not done yet, please, 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 scoping is the best utilization of time. Sit with a GC, sit with your seniors, because if you don't do that particularly well, when you are learning, it is going to impact how you become, because scoping is the next part of the pitching. Yeah. Pitching without a scoping exercise does not give you any work. If you do not know scoping, then pitching, you can't do pitch. So for any law firm, BD person, that's the most important. I think second, I think you said, sir, the competency that is, and while I agree to the fact that you're not married to a law firm partner, but these days what we've seen is the partners go along with the juniors to the new firm. So the entire department has moved. And therefore your dependency on the firm actually is totally dependent on the new partner who's come in as a replacement or the going on partner. So that's a difficulty when you deal with.
Go to another law firm. Go to another law firm. I'm simple. You know, when the person moves from one law firm to another, he himself is settling down in the new law firm. You and Darian with no malice. When the split happened between one of the large law firms, for about 2 years, I neither went to A or B. Because they were settling and there was a massive talent hunt that was happening in the market. You never knew who was with this firm or that firm, because after the split, they were just trying to pull. And this has happened 2 or 3 times in the market. So during that period, that's the cool-off period for you. You must get the early signs and back off. You must go to stability, because at the end of the day, these partners and managing partners can fight for talent, but you don't want your transaction to get screwed in the process. Sorry about that.
So no apologies needed. Every one of us has a varying answer to that, right? Some people actually depend upon what the partner brings instead of the branding. And some people go for the branding because your transaction is too big to be dependent on one. So there is no right or wrong answer to this. But move on. I mean, we've had a healthy discussion on the partnership model with the GC. But there is this assumption that the partner, the law firm, is the only supplier to the vendor. Sorry, and we are the buyer. As a GC, I'm the buyer and you're the only supplier. But I think I do not agree with that. Usually, what I've seen is the law firm partner will also call up to say, you know what, I have this new thing coming up and I need industry experience. Can you just tell me what should I be looking at when I'm pitching? But that is never stated in a forum, and a lot of people do not know that the GC is also training the law firm guy to do his best, because he's also invested. If I do not train you well, then you do not deliver the best. Ravi, what do you think? Have you seen this?
No, that's very right, Pranav. Coming from in-house background, I remember when we used to engage firms, we were very particular of which partner we want to work with. And the reason was very clear, because we had that comfort with that particular partner. He has been with us for a longest time, right? He understands how we think, how we operate, how we make decisions. So we would not really, back then we would not prefer a random partner from a largest firm. We would prefer a perfect partner, who is aligned with our culture, with our thought process, and who helps us actually close the transaction. Right. So yeah, these are the important considerations. And now as well, as now seeing from this side of the table, you have to invest in a relationship. You start something, from the scratch. You develop that expertise. You develop that comfort, that trust with the GC, and then it works your way.
Pranav, this is absolutely right. With the rich experience GC comes with, they, while doing a particular transaction, they go deep into it. So there are practical aspect to it. Sometimes, law firm can guide you on legal aspect, but not the practical aspect, right? So as a GC, we used to receive a lot of those queries from law firms, partners who have years of experience, that this is a particular practical situation. What do we do now? Because this can be addressed 50% legally, but there are other element, human element, which are required. That gap definitely can be bridged over an experience when you are actually doing the transaction for you, right? So yes, the role of GC is increasingly being recognized by law firms as partners also. So there are no surprises that you are consulted on numerous deals which law firms are doing these days.
If you allow me one, today the GCs not only are doing India work, most of the GCs of the large companies. So by default, the GCs are getting exposed to a lot of international laws. And in the process, a lot of international best practices come into that law. And that is where they are also advising law firms that when you pitch, you could pitch this way and you could do pitch that way. Because, and it's so important, and I didn't repeat myself, you must always believe that you are holding the transaction. The moment that shift happens, your knowledge level has to be, if not higher, at par with the senior partner who's supporting it.
True.
If that doesn't happen, then you are still catching up and you are not leading from the front.
That's absolutely correct, sir. If you're not someone who can guide an outside counsel, then you are getting guided, and in turn, you're not as relevant as you thought you would be. So better to be fully educated before you start the transaction. Be very aware of what an accounting assumption would be, what would be a tax presumption would be, how is the treasury going to pay, when are the deadlines of when the payment cannot be, whether this is a geopolitics that will happen. You need to know it all. This is just not legal paperwork. This is not two parties signing to the contract and says everything is going to go well. The entire transaction takes much longer, and there's a staggered payment system. There are people, there's head count. A lot of people will leave in between. You need to be very ready that this transaction is not going to be just two people. One is the GC and the law firm, but your entire team and the extended relationship with you will also come in play. People will come and leave, but sometimes that derails the transaction. That is when it turns sour. But one of the things, Raghu sir, that you said, and we've not discussed at length at this forum, is the competition between the Indian law firm and the international law firm for the same deal, and how would you assess that if it's not for the money that is being charged? What are the characteristics that you will probably look into it while assessing an Indian firm or an international firm on the same transactions that you want to do with the scope of work that you have?
See, you would only use an international law firm if your transaction is multi-jurisdictional. You will not use it for an India transaction. That part is completely ruled out till the time foreign law firms come into India, right? But, you know, you have to apply the same levels of ruthlessness, whether it's an Indian law firm or foreign law firm. Let's stop being, very benign to foreign law firms and very ruthless to Indian law firms just because you have access to them. I will give you a small example. I did a transaction with one of the large law firms. When the bill came, it was 948,000. I will not tell you the currency, you'll guess. But when I sat with the managing partner there and I said, I am not disputing your bill, but I need to understand how you arrived at this bill. I never told him that I'll not pay. And I went line by line. Trust you me, what I paid him was 445,000. Nearly $500,000 less than what they had billed. So, those days, and I might sound very parochial, those days of Western domination versus Indian domination, everybody, if you are expecting the Indian law firms to up theirs, you also have to bring down this high horse foreign law firms. And I say this, I've said this in International Bar Association, so people like me for that, people hate me for that. But the question is that economy decides which way business is flowing. And therefore, whoever flows with the tide is the guy who wins, right? In the 70s, the business never used to come to India, we used to follow. We used to follow the Western world. Today the business is coming, we'll take advantage of that. We ought to be really stupid not to take advantage of that. Having said that, I'm not going to pay you because you are a particular
Magic circle.
a magic circle law firm. Those days, and I say the same thing to our bid 4 or bid 5 in law. I'm not going to pay you because of your brand. Do you give me a discount because of my brand? Because you are the council for, I used to work for livers. You are the council for Hindustan Livers, so therefore you give me a discount. Do you do that? But you look at my balance sheet and you bill me. That's not the way. And for this, and I again say this with complete humility, there must be courage of conviction of the in-house councils that their competence, they are well invested into their competence. If you believe you are a postman, you'll always be a postman. If you believe you are the general counsel and you are the guy who drives the business of the company, that conviction must be there. And that conviction can only come when you can clearly advise your management that this is the position of law. However, if you want from board perspective and opinion, I'll get it from this law firm. But I know the position is this. And I've done that.
100%, 100%, sir. Amit sir, any distinct characteristics that you probably would assess India versus international when procuring services?
See, if the transaction is multi-territory, obviously you have no other option but to have the international lawyers. But at the same time, I think I would evaluate more on efficiency, competitiveness, and the quality of work. I still have a feeler that domestic law firms knows your territory better. They know the policy framework, they know the law better, and how it is implemented. So unless law firm compete and show that they can perform better, I think it's only the time that will tell who would be ranked better by the GCs in the coming time.
I think anybody who knows stamp duty better, I think wins at the end of the day, right? So international law firms have find it a little challenging to read our Stamp Duty Act and kind of understand. They always will rely on an Indian counterpart, whereas an Indian counterpart will actually know if you're in default and the duty at the time was 3% and now you're paying penalty of 400%, which rate to apply. And I think that is a characteristic that an Indian lawyer of Indian origin or has studied Indian law will know better than a competing international lawyer until unless his entire work revolves around stamp duty.
So I'll give you an example, Pranav. I was dealing with one of the Chinese lawyer, and I wanted an opinion on a very small issue. I mean, he was confused, and he gave me answer in 3 days, and that was conflicting, right? And I asked that I wanted a clear answer. So he said Indian law is subject to different interpretations. So I think with this kind of understanding, it's difficult. They will definitely be more aware of how the Indian courts interpret law, and they have to align themselves based on that. Then only the reliability and would increase in Indian space.
Yeah, but Indian law is subject to who interprets, right? Whether the advocate general or the judiciary or the lawyer who's arguing. So we'll have to there's no one interpretation until unless the judiciary settles it down for everyone, and which is the Supreme
But
Court.
I tell you, in this particular case, we appointed one of the prominent law firm, and whatever opinion we got from them, it was firm and it worked.
Gentlemen, quickly, we just have 2 minutes left before I'm pressurized for the other panel to start. Ravi, I'll start with you. One thing a GC or a law firm partner should start and stop doing. What he should start and what he should stop. And if you want time, you can handle the mic.
I think GC should have that mindset that your external counsel is like your extended team member. GC needs to be absolutely transparent with the external counsel. And likewise, external counsel should have a very clear communications with the GCs so that they understand, what are the driving forces, what are the real incentives and motivations.
Well said.
I would say a GC should start realizing that the entire ownership, of a transaction, litigation lies with him, right? And he should be, he's sitting in a driver's seat. So, you should align the law firm, in such a manner that, you preserve your wealth. As a law firm, they should understand that they are an extended team to a GC, and they should be ready to support, whenever there is a need, and if timeline is an issue, if cost effectiveness is an issue, they should be ready and prompt in resolving it.
One thing that the GC or a law firm should start doing and stop doing.
Law firm or just?
Whatever stand you want to take.
Okay. I represent general counsels, and I can say that's what. Increase your competence too. Increase your competence. Don't, because you have access to the same books that law firms have. Spend time, energy, reading. Because books should be the first love for all lawyers, and why not for the in-house? Second, at least I have practiced that. Don't seek an opinion till the time you know yourself what the opinion should be. I can repeat that. Don't seek an opinion till the time you yourself know what the opinion should be. Which means your competence level, you are more in a probing mode when you go to a law firm, but you know actually what should be the opinion. That is when you have a very healthy debate with a law firm. Otherwise, in the past, what used to happen? Law firms will tell you, you take it as gospel truth and come back and implement in the office. I know, difficult statement. It'll take you time, but that should be your aspirational position.
Well said, Raghu sir, and a huge round of applause for the panel. It's been a very healthy discussions. Like I said, like this panel has 100 plus years of experience sitting here, and really, when they speak, there was no preparation, there were no advanced questions. I made sure that I do not give them, and everything that's being said is actually on the foot. So, huge round of applause once again.